Is the ever so elusive halving pump about to take Bitcoin to 8,000 and beyond?
Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let.
Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. And is OBS working in the background? No, but I have a quick fix, and there we go. Yes, there it is. I figured it out. OBS gods once again have removed cock from ass, and I'm ready to rock and roll with some good old cryptocurrency analysis. In fact, today, because we really haven't seen too much change from the medium and higher time frame perspective, it's going to be more focused on the lower term time frames, and that gives us time to navigate through the other markets that are actually moving in this world right now. So a lot to talk about there. As far as Bitcoin goes, going to be a lot of the same, so definitely check out the long-term analysis video that I uploaded on Sunday in the playlist titled long-term analysis. If you're looking for more of that, this one's going to be focused on more or less shorter-term timeframes. Anyways, before we get into it, I do want to say I would respectfully, massively respectfully, and humbly request that unless if it's like super urgent or something like that, please do not message me on Discord. It's been really difficult to get through all of the messages recently. I'm probably not going to give you signals if you DM me. I'm probably not going to tell you my positions. I'm probably not going to do any of the other interesting requests that I've gotten. I really want to focus that down on as I've been trying to work through it since my girlfriend just kind of recovered from perhaps the coronavirus, perhaps not. We're not so sure. And then also myself kind of recovering from my own mishaps, I guess, with my surgery from about a month ago now, more than a month ago, which is still being a massive pain in my back end. Anyways, on top of that, I do want to say we actually do have the open interest chart now running on the Krown trading app. However, there's a little bit of a mishap with programming it, which means that we actually don't have any historical data as it stands right now, and we will be able to generate it from here on out. But the next update should shore that up a little bit more. That's going to be coming up in about 2 days. Keep an eye out for that. But for right now, you actually can find it if you just click on this right and over here. It'll obviously be reskinned and everything. It's also going to be linked up to your journal as well if you do want to access it from that area. But more importantly, also I should say, I may be on Twitch today. I'm not necessarily sure just yet. I'll decide in a little bit. I'll probably be on Twitch today, but it will be a little bit later than typically, and we'll actually run probably a little bit later as well, perhaps as well. Anyways, other than that, what do we want to talk about? Well, let's talk about some open interest. We do see it at 720 million. It's a little bit of a change of behavior, especially on the short term. We still haven't seen a massive move going on in Bitcoin, but we do see positions being accumulated right now, which is more or less lining up with that next big move that I am looking for in less than a week now, probably coming between now and the start of next week. I think that when looking at volatility yesterday, or historical volatility percentile yesterday, we were looking at kind of a likelihood of somewhere in the range of the next between now and about Sunday, which is going to line up with our other forms of analysis. So keep that in the back of your mind. So we are starting to see positions accumulated now, and that's going to tie into the analysis in the sense that Bitcoin's still doing more or less on the same. So once again, it has been a very long slog through this area, as Bitcoin loves to do when it kind of switches up the phases. And I do feel like we're starting to see some more actionable things. So not only do we see our historical volatility percentile reads, which we've been looking at for a while now, starting to suggest a big move relatively soon, but now the open interest is really starting to follow through. Next, I'd expect volume to follow through, and then price action, of course, as volume typically does precede price action. Anyways, other than that, all of the metrics at the top end right here, still more or less the same. We really haven't seen any change in that in like the last month or so. They've been oscillating within a very small percentage point of each other. Fear and greed index actually taken up at a 19, which is rather high for right now. No, just kidding. I don't know how much I trust this, but this would be actually more on the bullish end just because Bitcoin has doubled off the lows and people are still fearful right now, but everything else does kind of present a little bit of an more interesting case than that. So let's get into the actual price analysis right over here and check out what's going on Bitcoin. And what is this? Holy fucking moly! Is this another potential lower high in the making? I think so, yes. However, we do have a higher low right over here. So what does that mean? It means that we're consolidating right now, obviously. You don't need me to tell you that. But more importantly, it does give up a very nice and actionable way to kind of be judging price action right here, and to kind of spoil the surprise from the opening statement. Do I think that we're going up to 8,000 before the halving, or after the halving, or whatever it is? Well, at some point, probably, yeah. But are people just expecting like a massive green dildo party all the way up here, like right here, right now? Well, at the end of the day, my opinion on that is irrelevant. If we do actually confirm an uptrend here, which would just be had by just closing above our last little local high, as in we would have a higher low in place, then perhaps yes, actually, because, well, that would be relatively easily had right around that 7250-ish region. Or if you want to go back on over here and be a little more conservative, still 7,300, 7,350-ish region, as we've seen for the last couple of weeks in this range. But by the same token, does Bitcoin create a downtrend by taking out that last local low by this, in the exact same ways? Yes, absolutely. So we are at a decision point. You can see that this is really starting to squeeze price action into a very close quarters, which just increases the likelihood of resolution. And I do believe that this next trending move is going to move Bitcoin, multi-thousands of dollars. To the upside, at least $1,000, probably up to that $8,000 region. To the downside, I do think into the mid to low 5,000s and perhaps beyond. Of course, we've been looking at our higher term timeframes, which I said I wouldn't cover too much on this video, but perhaps that could be extended quite a bit, just in case if we actually see some new formulated in that region. Anyways, getting way ahead of myself right now. Let's go down to the lower term timeframes, as we said at the beginning of this video, and kind of cover up from what we saw yesterday. So yesterday I did say that we were likely to pop back up to 7,100 or 7,150-ish region into our next blue box territory, or I guess I don't have a blue box right here, but there it is. We can actually just force one in there. Again, only relevant to the very short term timeframes, and we did get that move, and that does align with, well, more or less the same as as we've been looking at. Now, by the same token, the rejection coming in right in over here well, as expected, if you are going to be looking at this as still a consolidation, but resolution will now be had from a lower time frame perspective if Bitcoin can close a 4-hour dildo, let's call it above 71, it's technically 7130-ish region, although I would say 7150, a little bit of a better, a little bit of a more conservative metric there, and then I would look for another move all the way back up on over here to 7300 to 7350. Remember, that is the big bad area, because if Bitcoin does actually close, especially a higher time frame like a 12-hour or a daily above there, that's not only going to confirm an uptrend, it's also going to be a break above a prior high. And I really don't see anything stopping Bitcoin from that, $7,900 or $8,000 region right in over here, which I do still think is possible. Although I'm not, I think it's possible. I'm not necessarily looking for that to happen though. We will look at probabilities in just a bit here, as I do want this video to be a little bit on the shorter end to reflect the not so changes of behavior on any time frame that really matters, except for the lower term time frames. But by the same token, to the downside, we do have now this long-term rising trend line coming in back from our lows on March 13th, actually meeting up with this blue box. No longer this guy down around here, although I do think more conservatively, I would actually wait for 6,700 to be broken to the downside, because not only would that confirm a breakage of, or be a very, very an obvious breakage of this massive rising channel that we've been living in for the past a month and a half now, I suppose, but it'd also be confirming a downtrend on the daily trend as well. So we have trend plus formation plus probably momentum oscillators, and if we look at the open interest, that would really start to confirm that this move is ready to go. Another like $1,000 to $1,500 to the downside. I think that we can make a measure move on this, which we've already done on Finex, and that would suggest a move all the way down to about 5,400 if that break did occur. But I do want to talk about the upside just for one more second here before we move on to other more important things. For the upside, this area right here I really, really like. Not only is it the blue box coming correlated with this last sort of order block that we saw before this major breakdown in early March, but also more importantly the liquid zone before the big breakout from this accumulation period in late 2019 before a $4,000 move. So I really like that from a historical standpoint. I'm sure that it lines up with the Fibonacci. I forget exactly which one because it's been about a day since I did this last. Same thing right on over here. Yeah, about the 618 Fibonacci retracement. So I do like that area. And what else do we have in that region? Oh yes, so as we were just looking at on the daily, we have the 200 simple and 200 exponential average hovering right around that $8,000 number. So give or take, about $100. If Bitcoin does confirm this as as an uptrend right here and gets the breakout, either a 4-hour dildo closure above 7350-ish region or a daily dildo closure above 7300, and even just ticking above the high of this consolidation thus far, which is on Mexico 74.75. I'm curious what it is on Stamp. It would be 74.69, better number actually. That probably does it as well, but it depends how conservative or aggressive you are as a trader. Of course, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I am just sharing the way that I kind of interpret these charts as they go along. But let's take another look into this. Like I said, while I do think that it is possible Bitcoin could go up here, and those targets would be very easily identifiable, at least in my opinion, especially alongside those critical triggers. I think the downside is a little more likely here. Again, Bitcoin, to me, this looks like a rejection, especially on a lower term time frames. And with Bitcoin really kind of squeezing both the purple 200 exponential moving average and the green 55, it tells me that we are looking for a big resolution here. And the next, and if we do get another cross to the downside, which to be fair, it actually just kind of inverted or reverted one from before this past weekend, it looks like, it probably does lead up into that next resolution point. And momentum oscillators are going to be turning against this baby relatively soon, as our low time frame Stokes are certainly going to be finding a little bit of, well, I shouldn't say certainly, are likely going to be finding some resistance in this area right around here, which is nicely correlated with the top side of the critical zone. So I do like that just from a confluence standpoint. If we put on the reverse Stoke indicator right on over here, I'm curious to see if that lines up with any of our critical points. And actually for the short-term timeframes, it does at 6950-ish region, which let's actually go back to BitMexico. That's the blue box right on over here. So essentially what we can say now, or what I can say, I mean, I don't know if you're following this or not. Maybe you're like, Krown, this is fucking stupid and I hate you and I'm going to dislike your video as well. Well, okay, fair enough. You're free to do that. But that area is very interesting because it's also below the 200 exponential moving average. So that means that if Bitcoin actually does cross back down below there and close 4-hour dildos below there, we will be inevitably getting a death cross once again, plus momentum oscillators turning down from that point. So it would be gaining momentum below that point, and plenty of room to go here alongside meeting this trend line right around here as we just, well, I guess I did it on a different time frame, but you probably already get that, somewhere right around here. So I do like that. And we also are going to see historical volatility percentile coming from a very low read, which is, well, once you're very low, you're likely to expand. So it would be saying that we're likely beginning the next trending move, especially from a low time frame area, which likely does give it the momentum to break officially the rising trend line from this rising channel that we've been working on for the last month and a half. So yes, that likely does get it below 6950, 6900, same thing essentially. I don't really care about a $50 range, but personally speaking, I would really like to see 6700 broken before, or at least 6750 on a daily dildo closure before getting too excited about significant downside coming back below 6,000. For right now, Bitcoin's more or less in limbo as far as I'm concerned. 4-hour RSI is giving us the very smallest amount of bearish divergence. Barely, you'd barely even call it that, but technically speaking, it is in there. And we do see that play out on Bitcoin quite a bit, although I think that moves more or less happen right there. Let's go see if our other lower term timeframes agree with this, or if they have anything unique to offer up. Looking at the 3-hour historical volatility percentile, we do see that it is, coming from a lower read right here as well. Likely to expand, I do think, within the next few days as we do get to the end of this week. 3-hour Stokes coming down from right around here, and they will confirm to the downside as long as we remain below about 71.20. So that is even the blue box that we're kind of operating off of right now. So it does say that the longer that Bitcoin stays below here, the more and more that the momentum oscillators will ebb to the downside, which again, admittedly does not insinuate a break of this area right here. But as you can as you can see, that's going to be the next sort of gatekeeper, at least for the short-term timeframes, and probably does lead up to the medium and higher-term timeframes, although I would be more conservative with that to be more directly clear below 6,700 or 6,750, depending upon which time RSI, which exchange you're looking at. Looking at the 2-hour RSI breaking back below the exponential after rejection on the bearish, after the bullish control zone. I do not like that read, coming from the same angle as well from the top side, and of course the hourly following through to the downside as well. So I think that we're probably going to pop back up and maybe test around 7,100, which we did say was likely yesterday. We said 7,100 to 7,150, which we did get. I didn't toot my own horn on that, so let me be arrogant for a second. I called a $200 move. That's fucking amazing, and I didn't trade it at all. So who cares? I didn't trade it, like not even one bit. Just irrelevant stuff. This is the way that Bitcoin loves to play out. It's consolidations. Just increasing the boredom factor over the course of like a month, and then a big massive move for about 2 weeks, and then another consolidation for like a couple months, and then another move for like a week or two, and then another consolidation for a couple months. At least that's what I've seen in my career in trading Bitcoin. So yes, most of the momentum oscillators are agreeing with each other, but I do think that we probably pop back up, maybe test a little bit more into the 7,100 region again. I mean, this is like irrelevant, realistically speaking, because we're on such low time frames right here, but I do think that Bitcoin probably did just put another short-term top within this region right around here, and we will come back down, ultimately back down towards 6,900, 6,950-ish region, and that's going to be the next big test. Does Bitcoin actually have the momentum to break it right now on the short-term time frames? Well, yeah, actually it would. Which we said was not likely back on over here, but I do believe now it could, especially if it actually starts to close 4-hour dildos below the 200 exponential moving average. But it's not the short-term timeframes that I really care about for a move like this. It's the medium and higher-term timeframes, which I said it wouldn't cover all that much, but I think we got the crux of the message there. 12-hour Stokes are going to be coming down. It looks like, although they are hinting at perhaps across the upside. Remember, we did hit this trend line coming in all the way back from early Feb, which by the way was this high right here at about 10.5, connected with this high right here at about 9.15. Connected with this high right around here at about 74 before $1,000 move to the downside, even though it doesn't look like much on this chart. And then, of course, once again, more recently here at about 72.50. So that tells me that the momentum to the upside is getting weaker as time goes on. But I'm curious to see where the reverse Stochastic indicator cross would have to close in order to revert this a little bit. And yes, right above 7,000 region. So as long as it's above $7,000, it's hard to get even bearish for like a very short term move. I mean, the fucking short. Shout out to all the people trading a 15-minute chart out there. I pour one out for you, and I commend you for your absolute massive nut sacks or clits, I guess, if you're a female out there, or whatever the fuck the other gender pronouns like in this industry. But for the love of God, man, I feel like right now is the time to be a little bit more patient, as I've been saying for the last week. I do believe that we're going to be looking at a big move again, end of this week. I think is quite likely. We should see the 12-hour historical volatility percentile very low, as we've been looking at for a while now. And what do you know? It is incredibly low and coming to an apex, as we've been looking at around the middle of May, which is, funnily enough, right around the halving date. So, usually, typically speaking, statistically speaking, I should say, when these things get about 69 to 75% full, which we're pretty much there right now, they become extremely likely to break. So I'd look for the historical volatility percentile read to actually take off and close above this trend line first. Then I'd look for volume to follow through, as volume is also kind of reaching its own critical mass point as well, having an apex a little bit later than the historical volatility percentile read, but still, suggesting a strong likelihood of a break right around here, which would be in about 3 days. So that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So yeah, end of this week, and I still think is rather likely, or beginning of next week. That would also be maybe around the time that CME's open for the for the beginning of the new week next week. So we're getting way ahead of ourselves right now. So I do think that it's still going to be more or less boring for the next couple of days, but very, 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 very short-term ranges for the people trading those short-term ranges. Like I said, I commend you. I don't have anything against it. Just for myself, I don't really care to do that. Even though we did have a nice little move yesterday, and we did say that it was likely to get up there. But now I think that this comes back into normality. Just playing out the ranges essentially, and these ranges get shorter as time goes on, as we've been looking at. So what was once like a $400 range between this point and this point is now like a $200 range, and now even from 71.50 down to 69.50, well, it's still a $200 range, so fair enough. But we're getting to the precipice of this move, I do think. So a little bit of patience here is going to go a long way, in my opinion, because I don't want to be caught in like a trade that I got in on a fucking hourly, or God forbid, a 30-minute or a 15-minute. Again, no disrespect to anyone out there who's making shit tons of money trading those time frames. I'm actually quite happy for you. I'm always happy for people when they make money, as long as they do good things with it. But who am I to be the judge of that? Anyways, my point is that for my own trading activities, understand the lens or the focus that I'm looking at this through. I'm looking for the next big move realistically here. I think the time to be hitting singles is coming to an end, and the time to go for like a triple or a home run is going to be staring us in the face relatively soon. Okay, what else do we want to look at? I didn't really take a look at the RSI reads on these lower term time frames. Well, we did on the 4 hour, a little bit of bearish divergence there, but I think that it's already kind of played out. Same thing on 3 hours, same thing on all of them. Okay, let's go to the 12 hour. So yes, like we said, 12 hour Stokes will remain to the downside if Bitcoin does close below about 70.20 on Mexico. Again, I just don't think that we're really, makes it hard right there. Ooh, it makes it very hard. Oh, so dumb, man. So dumb. You can see that I'm truly starved for price action by talking about bullshit like this. So I do apologize for all the new listeners out there. You can expect more stupidity from myself. Anyways, looking at the daily, we are actually angled to the upside right here. However, let's see where this one crosses back as well. I'm just curious. Yeah, so as long as Bitcoin's above 70.50-ish region on a daily total closure, we will actually maintain that upwards posturing. But what I'm thinking today is that we're probably just going to hold like this very short-term range between 70.50 and 71.50, whatever it is. And if things are going to break up, I actually do think that it happen today or tomorrow. I do think that it happens sooner rather than later. So I think that the bulls are on the clock right here as far as things go. And like I said, I'd be happy for things to go to the upside. I want resolution. Looking at Bitcoin's daily RSI, what do we see here? Looks like we're going into a nice consolidation right on over here. Now, yes, we did have an inverted head and shoulders, and actually one of my good friends called this out to me. Shout out to IAMS. I don't know what name he trades under now because he's always changing it, but I do appreciate his insights, and he actually sent this one over to me. There's a very clear inverted head and shoulders on the 2-day RSI that is now kind of shaping up to be an ascending triangle right on over here. I do think that is valid, and that's probably the most bullish thing on the board to myself. And what I'm talking about is this guy right here, and then of course the head and shoulders, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And I do think that these work out a little bit better on RSI. But what we can do here, because it is at a it is at an inflection point, is what I'm trying to say. And if we do get a sustained move back above the 51.5 read right here, that will resolve it essentially, and I'd be looking for a big massive move up into the bullish control zone, and that would extremely likely give us that next higher high that we're looking for, which could confirm the daily uptrend. And then I'd be looking for a move up to $8,000, maybe even higher than that over time. But until that happens, I'm very skeptical on this. I do not like any of the higher time frames for Bitcoin right now. The 2-day looks absolutely atrocious to me on anything but that what I just showed. Looking at 2-day RSI, looking at 2-day Stokes, we do see that they're down right now, and they will remain to the downside as long as we are below 7,100 on a 2-day closing basis, which we do close this later tonight. And then more importantly for myself, which supersedes everything that I just said, and this is probably the one higher time frame thing that I'll refer to right now. You already fucking know what I'm going to talk about. 2-day death cross right on over here. We got it late March, and we are now about a month away from that, or a little bit less than a month away from that. And as long as I see the green 55 and the purple 200 getting divergence away from each other, suggesting that the trend is strengthening to the downside, and Bitcoin price action is below the 21 exponential moving average on a closing basis, which right now it is not. That is right around $7,000. And remember, 7,000, a humongous area for those medium and higher term time frame momentum oscillators to turn back down around. Just saying, as long as Bitcoin is below it on a closing basis, which the last one did close below, this one could have a chance to close above, and we will close this later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. I do look at that as overall pressure onto the downside. The last example that we had was back in 2018, gets a death cross right on over here, and then about 2 months later, from September to November, we see the massive dooms drop all the way down. Bitcoin kind of spends a lot of time, ebbing and flowing around this region, does test up to the 55, which, I think is possible here. If Bitcoin gets going to the upside, that would be around that $8,000 number. It's definitely possible still, even though this could maintain a bearish posturing for the higher term timeframes as everyone gets excited for halving pump. Well, again, this ultimately ends with about a 50% drop. And as long as Bitcoin price action is below the 21, it's pressure on to myself. I use that to kind of judge the strength of that signal as it is. Again, doesn't mean it's 100% guaranteed to play out. That's not what technical analysis is about. It's about statistics, but it does suggest that it does suggest that the probabilities are on that side, which we'll look at probabilities in just a moment. Looking at the cross before that, we do have an example right over here. Again, Tesla 55, all the way up to the 200 in this case, and then once it gets shoved back down below the 21 on an open and close basis, boom, massive move to the downside, about 54%. And again, from cross to dooms drop takes about a month and a half on this one. So with Bitcoin only playing out even a little bit less than a month right over here to where we are right now, is that historically likely to produce, or is that historically, in line with it? Kind of. It's kind of on the lower end, I guess. If you're just looking at a month, it would definitely be, which I do think would suggest that it's going to be less of an intense move to the downside then. But fair enough. And we do see a volume climax coming in relatively soon as well. I mean, this one actually looks like it's ready to go. In fact, on the 2-day volume signature, it actually does look like it's ready to go. Anyways, I know a lot of people out there say some along the lines of, that was a different market, different things. No, it wasn't. You're being silly, and you're you're blinding yourself by saying silly things like that. From a moving average perspective, it is the same on the weekly. The weekly trend is to the downside. The weekly trend is to the downside right and over here. From a monthly perspective, we're basically just looking at downtrends. So I don't see how that's any different. This is a downtrend. We got the death cross here at this price point. Yes, we do test up to the 10 simple. Could we test up the 10 simple here at 8,000? Yes, it's very possible, very, very possible. But same sort of things in 2018 downtrend, in 2014, 2015 downtrend. I think that's just very short-sighted and very, 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 very silly. And regardless of whether I'm even bullish or bearish here, like long term on the monthly, I do not think that we will close this month above 7,300. If we do close this month above 7,300, that would be very obviously bullish, but I don't think that that's what we're doing. That also doesn't mean that the low isn't possibly in. This does look like a capitulation right here, to be fair, but that also doesn't mean that we can't, grind out back down around the, mid to low fives, maybe even four, something like that. You see the same thing in 2014, 2015. Bitcoin has more like a U-shaped bottom after this first major wick up, and then kind of hold its own there and then, gets going. So if Bitcoin were to kind of flip back around, I do think that it would take its time. Is kind of the picture that I'm presenting here. Very much contrary to the YouTube titles that I see all the way around the sphere saying Bitcoin to 200 billion today, Bitcoin to fucking 100,000 quadrillion today, Bitcoin to fucking 8,000. Bitcoin could go to 8,000 today. Bitcoin to fucking 20,000 today. Halving pump, halving. It's like, what the fuck, man? I think that that's short-sighted, as well as just as equally as the bears telling you that this thing is going to like $1,000 or $2,000. I think that that's also possible, just like I think the upside is possible. But for the love of fucking God, man, it's really indicative of who's actually trading and who's just an analyst. Because to talk about a move down to 2,000 or a move up to 20,000 at this price point right here as anything relevant for what's going on for like an actual day-to-day trader is bizarre. I just don't see any professionals talking like that in my experience. Anyways, okay, cool. So yeah, like I said, this video is pretty much more or less boring as far as I'm concerned. It's already 27 minutes long. Looks like the 3 days kind of shaping up as well. As long as we're below the 200 simple on the closing basis, I'm not necessarily bullish. I'm not necessarily looking for this break up to the upside. 3-day RSI is okay. 3-day Stokes are okay, actually gaining momentum. So to be fair, it's actually kind of good. But I need to see at the very least a close above the 200 simple and preferably above the 21. If we can close this 3-day dildo above the 21 at 7,200, that's going to look pretty damn good for at least a test up to like 8,000. I do think. But for right now, to me, this, more or less still looks like pressure down. And I do feel like the market is turning more and more bullish by the day. But again, I probably am in my own echo chamber, so I don't know. Feel free to relegate me or educate me more accurately if you disagree with that statement. statement. Okay. Also, what else do we want to talk about? Yeah, let's go look at expected moves chart. Remember, going back to the lower term timeframes and all like the confluence of points, basically 6,900 to 6,950 is an interesting area, as well as 7,000. But I think just to kind of make it more conservative for those lower term timeframes, we'll call it 6,950. Of course, I would like to see 6,700 or at the very least 6,750 to confirm a downtrend on the daily. And by the same token, to the upside, we can use 7,350 still very much relevant. So let's go on over here and see what the probabilities are suggesting right now. 7,350 to the upside. 67, we can definitely move this up to 6,700 to the downside. This is going to be the more conservative estimate for the downside. And what do we see here? We do see a probability of the upside of 22% actually, which is pretty damn good. I'm curious how that changes if I were to use future. Okay, 15.5, but we'll use current for right now. I do think that current is the right one to be doing. And then below target probability, actually rather low from this price point. So what is that saying? It's saying that we're not likely to break down and like shatter today. And if Bitcoin does want to play out an upside move, it happens sooner rather than later. I do think that the bulls are on the clock here, and I do think that if Bitcoin is going to be reaching up towards those higher numbers, like the $8,000 region, it happens sooner rather than later. But the longer that Bitcoin just goes sideways without breaking above 7,300, the more and more inherently bearish that I believe that this gets. We can also look at these I guess I already have it on future. Future is actually showing down. So yeah, I would suggest that the longer that we go sideways here, the more and more bearish gets. Current would suggest upped, which fair enough. Now let's move the target lower range a little bit higher to the area that I think is a little bit more, it's certainly more aggressive, but is it more relevant? I think so, yes. Technically speaking, if you're going from blue box to blue box, although again it wouldn't get the actual trend, but it would get all momentum oscillators, plus a break in the short term, in the short term area. And what does that show? It actually shows as low that the downside is a little bit more likely from that price point. So that would start to kick off the avalanche of effects to the downside. But until the daily trend really switches around to confirming bearish, which right now we're kind of in decision phase. We get lower highs but also higher lows, which is very indicative of consolidation, fucking obviously, as is the volume, as is the volatility, as is the open interest. Then I would much rather err on the side of caution here. But same sort of thing. Just for shits and giggles, I'm curious what like a target upper range of like 8,000 would print today. Yeah, very, very unlikely. But fair enough. We've seen, just because it's unlikely doesn't mean it can't happen. It's just not very likely. This is a lot more applicable to options traders. Anyways, at the end of the day, this is what I'm looking at right here. Short-term time frames, 69.50. That's where momentum oscillators really start to turn back down, especially on medium and higher term time frames, as well as lower-term time frames. So an avalanche of effects back up to 71.30 to 71.50ish region. And I would look for things to actually come back up and formally test around 7,300 to 7,350. Do we actually close a higher term time frame like a 12-hour or daily above there, or at least a 4-hour above 7,350? That remains to be seen. I'd actually wait on for that. And then probably does have a nice move up to this region here, which is also correlated with this downtrend resistance, which I don't even have set in properly there. Some more like this, it looks like. Yeah, some a little bit more like that, meeting up around the blue box territory, 7,900 to 8,000-ish region. So yeah, if Bitcoin does break to the downside, which I don't think is happening like right now, but say it were, and I'm wrong on the timing of that, which I always am, then I do think that there would be bounces along the way. Areas of interest: 6,400, 6,100, 5,850, and then 5,500 for the full and measured move. Technically speaking, the last few times that we have gotten that death cross on the 2-day, we have gotten 50% more or down. So that actually would lead on into the mid 3,000s, I believe. Just kind of eyeballing this one again, about 50% from here, which is also one of the gaps on CMEs from a long-term perspective. I don't really want to go too deep into this right now, but looking at the CMEs right here, it is a little bit more interesting as well. We did hit the 0.5 fib and get rejected from there. This trend line right there, not really relevant, but the 382 kind of holding up our lows thus far at 6625. Other than that, am I seeing anything more obvious on CMEs? CMEs actually did print a higher high right here on the 4-hour, so fair enough. CME on the lower term timeframes is in an uptrend, so it is a little bit more bullish. So maybe I am wrong on looking at this as more bearish. So fair enough. Fair enough. I can very easily be wrong here. Very easily be wrong. Yeah, still more or less the same. Okay, let's go check out Mr. Buterol. Mr. Buterol at 180, spot 16. And what do we see? Mr. Buterol seems to be one of the stronger ones actually right now. Still maintaining above all major moving averages on a daily, which I do like. We did hit our target to 190-ish region earlier this week, it looks like. But now what we can do, or at least now what I can do, is I can say as long as we're above about 173.5, does it have a chance to actually green dildo its way back up to the fucking heavens? Maybe back up to like 220. Yeah, possibly. But the second that it breaks back down below 173.5, that's where I'd expect Bitcoin to really be confirming its downtrends as well. Technically speaking, still kind of operating this ascending broadening wedge, and target to move probably back down to about 153-ish region, which is, well, that's pretty damn big move right here actually. Yeah, about 12%. What about Litecoin? Litecoin looks like the most bearish of the bunch. She looks absolutely sick. Daily Stokes are even having trouble right here. This one looks like it wants to fall off a cliff, but I would say that obviously if Bitcoin moves up, she's going to move up as well, probably all the way back up to like 45 and a half or and such. Bitcoin moves to the downside, this one should get hurt the most, probably back down to like 37 bucks for a short-term low, and then maybe 35 for the next bounce. So where I'd be looking towards. Let's go check out traditional markets really quick. Traditional markets are ebbing on the flow of having a more bullish bias here. We did see the move down that we were looking for yesterday on NAS futures. We did see the move that we were looking for up in the short term on the stock market. But are we just putting a lower high as it is right now? I do think so. Yes. Looking at the weekly, I don't think that this one, similar to Bitcoin, I don't think that it's like ready right now, but I do think that it is kind of looking a little more toppy as time goes on. Yes, it is having a good reaction off the 21, which we did speak about earlier this week as well, but depending upon how this closes tomorrow, I would maybe be posturing some nice option spreads coming into next week, as that's going to be potentially a nice big move alongside Bitcoin, which they typically move together. So you can imagine whichever way that these babies break is probably going to be the way that Bitcoin does as well. Daily on E-mini futures looks a little bit more bearish to me. I do think that we're going to head back down to about 2730-ish region. I don't have an opinion on whether it sees a short-term bounce there or not, but I do think that ultimately it will break down. This looks like a loss of momentum to me overall, and of course, as always, I will be wrong on this if we do get a daily total closure above, let's call it 2820-ish region on these E-mini futures, and then I'd look for a move all the way back up, probably to the 618, and formally tested at 2930-ish region. But as far as this goes, I do have this charted out as a rising wedge here, which actually did break to the downside and does have a measure move down towards 2640, 2630-ish region. So I do think that we will head there, ultimately speaking. Looking at the weekly, weekly looks a little bit more toppy to me than NASDAQ futures, so it's definitely the techs that are leading this up right now and keeping this market up. Are we going to see bifurcation here? Maybe. We don't really see any difference between E-mini futures and SPY, which is what you should expect. Daily testing the 55, just like Bitcoin as well yesterday. It's like, holy shit, I'm looking at the same goddamn chart. I really need to see the weekly close, but a weekly closing anywhere here or lower is going to be bearish for me leading up into next week. But that's really all that I can say right now, actually. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Looks like we kind of ended on a little bit of a sell-off yesterday, kind of rejecting the highs, but I don't really see that as too problematic here. But just like NAS futures, I do think that this one probably does pop back down to like 273-ish region. See how Japan's operating right now. Japan is up for the day, actually, but is Japan following or not? It looks to me like it's probably following here. Don't really have too much to say about that. Germany, are they open yet? Yes, they are. A little bit of a down open, but not really getting too much from that. I think that US is going to set the tone on this one. Overall, I do think that this, any sort of a close here or lower by end of day tomorrow, Friday, is going to set us up for some downside next week, I do think. But again, it doesn't again, to deliberately differentiate between short-term timeframes, medium timeframes, and high and macro timeframes, for the love of fucking God, because this is perhaps where I don't express myself the best, but it seems to be where I get misheard the most. So I have to take some responsibility for that as well, of course. And for Bitcoin, can I be short-term bullish on it like I was yesterday? Yes. Can I be medium and long-term bearish at the same time? Yeah, absolutely. Same thing for traditional markets. Short-term, I don't really have a strong opinion. I'm neither bullish nor bearish in the short-term. Medium and long-term, if we do get that closure yesterday that I just spoke about, I would be looking for some more downside. Other than that, I think that's a good place to turn this video off. Looks like it's not going to be shorter at all. Good fucking one, Krown. Oh, Jesus, man. Sorry about that, fellas. And also fellas, or what's like the female version of that? I don't know. But you know what? For all the cool girls out there listening to content like this, I salute you. Anyways, for all 5 of you. But for real, there's actually been some really cool girls in this community who seem to be like just extremely laid back, as well as the guys, you know, too. I think this place kind of attracts like a special type of person. You have to be able to, well, one, deal with my probably annoying, you know, scratching nails on the board type personality and voice, and then you also have to be interested in managing it money. So that's a lot of hurdles to get through. But for those of you who made it through, that's awesome, and I welcome you here with open arms. Anyways, other than that, I want to wish you well once again. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'll be on Twitch later today or not, but take care.